there's not much doubt, Chinese leadership is about the most competent in the world. What's the objective of democracy? That's good governance. State must deliver. Leaders must deliver, meet demands of the people. The problem with the Western political model is you cannot carry out long-term plans, either without plans or even with plans. One government represented by one party and replace the previous political party, and then plan destroyed.
大家好，今天聊一个可能让西方破防的问题。西方天天教中国什么是民主，可几十年过去，究竟是谁把国家治理得更好？本场访中，国际关系学者张维为与主持人围绕中国政治制度、民主与治理、中国发展模式以及中西方制度差异展开了一场颇具争议的讨论。长期以来，西方舆论习惯用民主还是威权、自由还是不自由来评价中国，甚至认为只有西方那套选举制度才是真正的民主。可张维为却直接提出一个截然不同的观点，把民主简单理解成投票，本身就是一种误区。真正应该比较的不是制度的形式，而是一个国家究竟能不能治理好，能不能让人民过上更好的生活。更关键的是，中国还有5年规划和长期战略，可以把几十年甚至上百年的发展目标持续推进。反观一些西方国家，选举一换届，政策就可能跟着改变。政党之间为了争夺选票不断博弈，这种所谓的民主，究竟是在服务人民，还是只是在完成一场又一场的政治竞赛？张维为甚至直言，西方强调的是程序，中国更看重的是结果。西方争论谁来执政，中国更关注执政之后能不能把事情做好。那么，如果民主最终是为了人民，究竟是投票更重要，还是让人民过得更好更重要？西方一直拿民主指责中国，而自身又是否真的做到了民主？接下来我们一起走进今天的内容。
So today's Chinese political system, if the Western system is called election, the Chinese one is called, from my point of view, selection plus election. But selection is always first. Your performance at different levels of governance. If you look at the top echelon of Chinese leadership, 7 members of Standing Committee of the Political Bureau, most of them worked 3 times as number 1 of a Chinese province, party secretary or governor of a province. And they've literally governed, over 100 million people before they came to current positions. Take Xi Jinping as an example. He was number 1 in Fujian province and Zhejiang province, and then Shanghai municipality, it's provincial level municipality. So he governed over 100 million people, and an economy larger than India. And then he became vice president. And then he became top leader after 5 years. So this is a kind of vigorous process of selection plus election. So there's not much doubt, Chinese leadership is about the most competent in the world. And then economically, it's a mixed economy. Officially, we describe this as socialist market economy. In other words, there is the role of market, the role of the state, the planning and market force, they are combined organically. And if you look at China's internet development, China is very strong in internet applications throughout China. The state sector is responsible for infrastructure, digital, 5G, 4G, 5G, please, in every village, so there is a human living there, 4G, 5G, right. Whatever cost. This is the mission of socialism. Yeah. And then private companies, non-state sector has made best use of this availability of first-rate digital infrastructure. So whether you go to Tibet or Xinjiang in a remote village, you have better Wi-Fi access than many center of European cities or American cities. First rate, yeah. And then if you look at Xi Jinping's economic thinking, supply sometimes creates demand. And with this availability of first-rate digital infrastructure plus speed train and highway, whatever, then a dynamic new economy somehow emerges, whether it's TikTok, it's EVs. And by the way, EV is also a product of a mixed economy. In terms of state planning, it's 20 years, 4 or 5 year plans. So back in 20 years back, there was already planning for EVs. Then with every 5 years, there was a readjustment of these 5-year plans. And then many, including BID, they are private companies. The problem in China is fierce domestic competition. Over 100, EV companies in China competing with each other. In the end, those successful become internationally competitive. And also, as a civilizational state, it's super large size of the market, which allows you to test each and every technological path. For a relatively small country, even like Japan, for instance, they will, bet on hydrogen energy. And the Chinese will say, let's try lithium battery, let's try hydrogen energy, let's try, other types of technology paths. In the end, we focus on the best one. So small economies cannot afford this kind of all-rounded approach, but China can test all these in different parts of China, different regions of China. And then we pick up the best and then channel more resources from the state, from private sector and support. So this is a part of Chinese model. Socially, we encourage positive interaction between the state and society rather than pitting society against the state. It has to do with the Chinese cultural tradition. Yeah. It has to do with harmony. We value that. And we think with this positive interaction between society and state, you achieve better results than locked-in confrontations. Yeah.
Would you make the argument that the harmony between the state and society speaks of the accountability of the leadership to the people, and this has helped with respect to the democratization of public goods?
Yeah.
Whereas some democracies around the world, we've kind of been witnessing how the accountability is more with respect to a certain class structure. And that has somewhat been deficient in distributing public goods within the society. Is it fair to make that sort of an observation?
Yeah. In terms of theoretical construction, I advocated since many years ago. I said from the Western political science, the paradigm was so-called democracy versus autocracy. And as a result, they encourage color revolutions, regime change, to adopt a Western-style political system. I said, this is totally wrong. This is outdated. We must shift from this democracy versus autocracy to a new paradigm. I call it good governance versus bad governance. So when I was debating this with my Western counterparts, they will say, so as Chinese, you dare not discuss democracy? I said, no, this is real democracy. I said, in the Chinese cultural tradition, we divide everything into Dao and Shu. Dao means overall purpose, overall objectives, high-end objectives. Shu means specifics. In your paradigm, democracy or autocracy, democracy is defined by the West, by you, That's the problem. It's based on the Schumpeter's 1942 formula, election of leaders by votes. I said, from Chinese point of view, this is a procedure democracy. Democracy in form at the best, one of the forms of democracy. I said, we must first establish the objective, the Tao. What's the objective of democracy? That's good governance. State must deliver. Leaders must deliver. meet demands of the people. We come back to Deng Xiaoping. He said in early 1980s, he said 3 criteria to judge what a political system is good or not. Number 1, can it ensure political stability? Without stability, no economic development, no better life for the people. Number 2, keep improving people's living standards and keep people's unity. He put unity very important. China, a vast country, at that time 1.2 billion people, now 1.4 billion people. And number 3, keep productivity moving ahead. This productivity is a Marxist concept. It had to do with advanced science and technologies as well. So this kind of, I call it, approach from Tao or from overall objectives. And then you try to design procedural democracy in the Chinese political system in the light of Chinese traditions and institutional arrangement. So if you compare the annual report of Chinese Prime Minister in March, what we call the 2 sessions, the Session of People's Congress and the Session of People's Political Consultative Conference, every line of his report had to do with the livelihood of millions of the people. It's very substance. And last year we made a promise, this and that, and this year fulfilled this 100%, 90%. So it's very concrete. If you compare this with the State of Union address by US presidency, it's really campaign rhetoric. Right. But the Chinese one is very down to earth. So the quality of decision making is also different. We can produce 5-year plans. It's already very sophisticated. You have 3 types or 4 types of 5-year plans. 5-year plan for economic and social development. That's the main planning. And you have a spatial planning for development, whether this area is for agriculture, this area for natural preservation, and this area for special economic zones. And then there are also what's called special target plans, like AI development, like EV development. So 3 types, and several levels, top level central government and provincial government, municipal government, and then county government. So all these are the very sophisticated arrangement of plans, and they have been all carried out on the whole very successfully. So the quality of making these plans, it involves hundreds, thousands of rounds of consultations within the party, outside party, between think tanks, and through the internet. So any Chinese, if you want, say I live in Shanghai, I will check Shanghai's 5-year plan. So I will know, in the next 5 years, there will be underground railways, there will be whatever, a new park, etc. And then again, supply creates demand. Yeah. So there is, economic activities goes with it. It's already in the cycle of Chinese daily life. So democracy, in the end, becomes something that you can deliver to the people. This is very important. Deng Xiaoping hates empty talk.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you sense that there is enough of an inertia within the institutions in China that it's not easy to change for the worse going forward? The way the Tao is being embraced, the way public goods are being distributed. That's my first follow-up question. But the second follow-up question, in the interest of our friends in, democratic countries, how do you see them being able to change from a procedural type of democracy to a different kind of democracy that will allow them to better distribute public goods?
On the first question of whether people have this kind of inertia, and indeed it happens. It's only natural, there are always those who work better, work harder, and more successful, less successful, less working harder. Now the point is, there is if you look at Chinese economy, there is a saying, you have to look at the internal competition between counties. it's such a vast country. You have 5 levels of government: central government, provincial government, municipal government, county government, and township government. And at all the 5 levels, there are competitions. For instance, at the provincial level, yes, Shanghai, Jiangsu, Zhejiang, we are all close together, Yangtze River Delta, which is already larger economy than Japan or Germany in terms of official GDP exchange rate. Yet there are also internal competition. So it's, you may call it benign competition, but this pressure is there. If you say at the level of county, county is the basic unit. In many ways, it's like a mini state, because if you are county chief or party secretary for county, you have to go through all political, economic, social, foreign trade, military affairs. You have to run all these. So in Chinese saying, if you want to become prime minister, you have to start it with a county chef. So this is a long time saying. It's still true today. All Chinese prime ministers have worked at grassroots. And then, every year there is a competition, and Chinese government, central government, provincial government will say, this county has done better than that county. And there's a ranking. It's ranking made public. So those who are lazy, less hardworking, less performing will have tremendous pressure. You may be removed from your post. So they have to change. But even with that, this 2080 rule, golden rule, only 20% of the people or companies or governments creates 80% of whatever success stories. It's universal. Yeah, it's always. But with competition, so the country as a whole become very competitive.
Now, on the second one, in terms of procedural democracy in the West, changing towards something that's hopefully less procedural but more focused on the distribution of public goods.
No, with regard to those countries that have adopted the Western political model, multi-party system and universal suffrage, that's fine, that's their choice. But the problem is the design of this system in the West have not thought about development. So the fallacy is if you have a Western political system, so you're not automatically become a developed country. The economy will become better. Of course, things turn out to be the other way around. Very often it landed in chaos, less development, and all kinds of problems. Politicians and populism, the country are not running very well. So I said, when I put forward this idea of good governance versus bad governance, I said, Western system can deliver good governance, but the non-Western system can also deliver good governance. China is the case. Likewise, bad governance can also be the result of Western political system. I can cite 100 examples. I've been to 100 countries. And same, it can also come from non-Western political systems. So we go beyond Western political model. Now, even with this kind of model, I was discussing, because we are receiving, friends from developing world. They raise the same question. I said, in the Chinese philosophy, when you are faced with so many problems or contradictions, you have to grasp what's called the main contradiction. For you mentioned the challenges faced by ASEAN countries, education, competition, infrastructure. But you have to get fundamentals right. And first, identify one crucial issue, and then try to get the ball rolling. Otherwise, if you want to handle all the issues simultaneously, it's very often not easy and even counterproductive. So from my point of view, the Deng Xiaoping's message is more or less like this. If you cannot have long-termism, in the case of China, if you cannot have long-term stability, China's modernization was inconceivable. the problem with the Western political model is you cannot carry out long-term plans, either without plans or even with plans. One government represented by one party and replace the previous political party, and then plan destroyed. So I'm thinking of whether in this kind of countries adopting Western political models can produce a long-term plan, a kind of vision that had been thoroughly discussed with all political parties, and then all agree to this kind of plan. And they are hopefully part of your constitution or part of your school textbooks, high school, universities, about whatever national rejuvenation or other grand objectives, so that whichever political parties in power, they will pursue this kind of plan. Otherwise, it's very difficult. Deng Xiaoping said, for a country like China, as big as China, we need 100 years stability. Otherwise, no chance. So China pursued this objective, stability, and then unity, and keep people living standards.
看完这场访谈，真正值得我们思考的，或许并不是中西方谁的制度更民主这么简单，而是一个国家究竟应该用什么标准来证明自己的制度是有效的。如果民主只是定期投票、政党轮替、竞选造势，那么程序确实可以很热闹。但如果一个国家真正要面对的是经济发展、基础设施、科技创新、教育普及、民生改善以及几十年后的国家目标，那么光靠一张选票显然远远不够。张维为提出的善治与恶治，恰恰把问题拉回到了结果本身。中国几十年来的发展，从脱贫攻坚到高铁网络，从制造业崛起到新能源、5G 和人工智能，再到一系列长期战略持续推进，这些变化或许不需要靠口号证明，而是实实在在摆在世界面前。反过来看美国，选举不可谓不热闹，党争不可谓不激烈，可医疗、枪支、贫富差距、基础设施以及资本影响政治等问题却依然长期存在。如果一个国家天天把民主挂在嘴边，却连自己的现实问题都迟迟解决不了，那么这种民主究竟有多少含金量？当然，中国的发展道路也不意味着没有问题，更不意味着任何制度都可以照搬。但至少有一点越来越值得世界重新审视衡量一个国家制度的标准，究竟应该是别人规定的程序，还是人民最终得到的生活？那么你认为真正的民主到底应该看谁能赢得选票，还是看谁能把国家治理好？如果让你2选1，你更看重民主的程序，还是发展的结果？欢迎把你的观点留在评论区。